The stars of Ardini's prime shimmered in patterns unfamiliar to human eyes, painting the sky with colors that seemed almost alive. The alien capital sprawled across the crystalline plains, a city built from structures that bent light and gravity to their design. Towers spiraled upward, reflecting the brilliance of twin suns, and the air hummed with quiet energy. Among this beauty, tension simmered in the grand palace at the heart of the city. Princess Lyra moved through the halls with measured grace, her elongated limbs carrying her silently across polished floors. Her eyes, an iridescent silver, reflected the starlight, hinting at a mind always calculating, always alert. Despite her regal demeanor, there was a spark of curiosity in her gaze as she paused before a large window. Looking out over the city dot behind her, a figure moved with deliberate care. A human, tall and solidly built, wore a simple uniform marked by practicality rather than rank. To anyone else, he might have seemed ordinary, but to Lyra, he was extraordinary. He had been assigned to her, not because of noble lineage or interstellar politics, but because he was one of the few humans who could think unpredictably, act decisively, and risk everything without hesitation. The human's name was Kale. He had come from a distant world, Earth, a planet considered primitive by Ardini's standards. Yet he possessed something the aliens did not fully understand: courage, born from empathy, and a will that could not be bent by fear or threat. In the weeks since he had arrived at the palace, he had already proven that he would place the princess's life above his own without question. That morning, the palace was unusually quiet. Lyra's mother, the queen, summoned her daughter to the central council hall. The room was vast, its ceilings high enough that the uppermost lights seemed like distant stars. The queen sat upon a throne that gleamed with embedded gems, her presence radiating authority and wisdom. "Lyra," the queen began, her voice both melodic and commanding, "there has been much talk among the council. I must know who guards you?" Lyra's gaze did not waver. She responded simply, "My human." The hall fell silent. The counselors exchanged uneasy glances, some stiffening at the declaration. They were unaccustomed to hearing of a human entrusted with the safety of an Ardini's royal. Humans were rare here, and many in the council still viewed them with suspicion, seeing their planet as backward, their ways unpredictable. The queen's eyes narrowed, a mixture of curiosity and incredulity. "You're human?" she repeated. "You do not mean one of our own elite guardians?" "No," Lyra said firmly. "I mean Kale. He is the one I trust. No one else can match him in judgment, and he has already saved my life." The queen studied her daughter for a long moment, then motioned for Kale to step forward. The human obeyed silently, his expression unreadable but calm. His posture conveyed readiness, but also a strange ease and air of someone who had faced dangers far beyond what the palace walls could hold. Kale knelt slightly, a gesture of respect without submission. The queen's eyes, sharp and searching, lingered on him. "And you," she said, "have you ever faltered in your duty?" Kale's answer was steady. "Never. My life is yours to command, or hers to protect. I exist for her safety alone." The queen leaned back in her throne, her silver eyes reflecting faint light. She had ruled for decades, guided by intellect and strategy, but something in Kale's presence unsettled her. She had seen bravery before, yes, but this human's fearlessness was different. It was not just strength or skill, it was loyalty, unwavering and absolute. "You speak boldly," the queen said, her tone softer now. "Many would consider your position dangerous, even foolish. Why would you risk so much for a princess of another world?" Kale's voice did not waver. "Because her life is worth more than my own. Because to protect her is to honor the values I carry from my own world. I do not weigh risk against reward. I act when action is required." The queen regarded him for several heartbeats longer. Then, slowly, she inclined her head. You may remain, she said. But understand this. Any threat to her that reaches you is also a threat to the entire realm. You are bound now not just to her, but to the fate of Ardeni's Prime. Kale nodded, accepting the weight of her words. He understood the political implications, but his focus remained on Lyra. The days that followed were a trial of both diplomacy and survival. The palace, though magnificent, was not immune to threats. Rival houses plotted quietly, jealous of the royal family's favor, while external forces watched the city from the shadows of space, eager to exploit any sign of weakness. One evening, Lyra and Kale were walking through the outer gardens, the twin suns casting long, sharp shadows across the crystalline paths. Kale had insisted on accompanying her despite the late hour, insisting that the gardens, though serene, could conceal dangers. Lyra studied him as he walked beside her, his eyes scanning the horizon, hands never far from the concealed weapons at his belt. You are always vigilant, she said softly. I must be, Kale replied. Even beauty can hide danger. She smiled faintly, a rare expression that softened her usual composure. I trust you more than anyone, Kale, not because you are stronger than the others, but because you see things as they are, not as they should be. You understand me. Kale's gaze met hers, unwavering. Then you will always be safe. That is my promise. Their words were interrupted by a distant tremor, subtle but distinct. Kale stiffened, signaling Lyra to follow him behind a large crystalline wall. The tremor was not an earthquake. The palace was anchored to the core of the planet, but a vibration caused by the approach of a vessel. Not a friendly one. Kale scanned the gardens, then used a small device to detect the type of energy signature approaching. His jaw tightened. They are coming, he said quietly. A strike team, cloaked. They intend to take you. Lyra's silver eyes narrowed. We must warn the Queen. No, Kale said, shaking his head. We cannot alert the palace yet. It will put everyone at risk. We fight here quietly. We survive, then we inform the council. The next moments passed in tense silence. Shadows moved among the crystalline trees, and Kale's instincts guided every step. He intercepted the first assailant before they could strike, disarming them with precise, efficient movements. Lyra followed his lead, using her agility to aid him in subtle ways, though she had no formal combat training. Together, they were a perfect unit-human determination, balanced by alien reflexes. The attackers, though advanced and deadly, were unprepared for the combination of Kale's tactical mind and Lyra's quick thinking. One by one, they were subdued or forced to retreat into the night. By the time the sun's twin rays painted the horizon with gold and silver, the garden was silent once more. Lyra turned to Kale, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then, softly, she said, You risked your life again. Kale shrugged, though fatigue pulled at his shoulders. It is what I do, always. Lyra reached out, placing a hand briefly on his arm. The Queen must know. She must understand. Kale nodded, and together they made their way back to the palace dot in the council hall. The Queen awaited, flanked by senior advisors. Her eyes, now more discerning than ever, flicked to Kale. You faced them? She asked, her tone both incredulous and approving. Yes, Kale said simply. They meant to take her. I stopped them. The Queen rose from her throne and approached Kale directly, the council stepping back in silent deference. Human, she said, her voice low and steady. You have proven yourself beyond expectation. Tell me, why do you serve her so completely? Kale's gaze met hers. Because her life, her world, and the peace of your people depend on it. And because I have chosen to act where others hesitate. The Queen considered him, seeing not just loyalty, but an unshakable moral core. In that moment, She recognized a truth she had resisted. The human could be trusted implicitly, more than any Ardeni's warrior or counselor. "You may remain by her side," she said finally, "not merely as a guard, but as a representative of courage and conviction. Let all know that her human stands with her, and by extension, with Ardeni's prime itself." Lyra stepped forward, bowing her head in gratitude, though her eyes glimmered with something warmer, something personal. "Thank you, Kale," she whispered, "for everything." Kale inclined his head slightly. "Always," he replied. The queen returned to her throne, observing them quietly. In her mind, a subtle shift had occurred. Humans, once seen as fragile and unpredictable, had earned a place of respect in the hierarchy of the stars. One human, in particular, had shown what her people had underestimated for too long, that courage, loyalty, and intellect were not confined to any single species. From that day forward, Kale's presence was more than protection. It was a symbol, a reminder to the people of Ardeni's prime that valor did not belong solely to the elite, nor to those born into privilege. It could come from anywhere, even a distant planet, from someone who chose to act rightly when the moment demanded it. And for Lyra, it was a bond deeper than any political alliance, deeper than fear or strategy. It was trust, unshakable and steadfast, forged in shared danger and quiet understanding. Wherever she went, Kale would be there, not because of orders, but because he had chosen to stand by her, fully and without hesitation. The city below glimmered under the twin suns as mother and daughter, human and alien, looked out from the palace. They had faced threats and overcome them, and in doing so had begun something new.